What if a simple act of kindness could unlock a reward beyond your wildest dreams, while one wrong choice could cost you your sanity? Have you ever wondered if the universe watches our smallest actions? What if helping a stranger opened the door to unexpected blessings, and greed quietly destroyed everything you held dear? In this powerful tale, you'll discover how one young woman's selfless heart led her to a mysterious gift, and how her friend's envy dragged him down a path of madness. It's a story about invisible tests, spiritual consequences, and the golden line between right and wrong. Stay with me, because this isn't just a folk tale. It's a mirror for our lives, and by the end, you'll see why what we do when no one is watching might be the truest measure of who we are. Let's begin. What if missing a job interview could open a door that money never could? Sometimes, destiny wears the face of an old woman in need, if only we dare to pause and help. It was supposed to be just another walk down a dusty city street. Nothing special, just Mara following her friend Jasper in hopes of landing a job that might change her life. Her worn shoes scraped the hot pavement. Her legs ached from hunger. Still, she walked. Because if she didn't get that job, she had nothing else left. Nothing to eat, nothing to believe in. Jasper, always full of confidence and sharp talk, led the way. "Don't worry," he said. "I know the manager. Just stick with me." But just as they rounded a corner, their plans collided with something unexpected. An old woman, hunched over, barely able to carry a bucket of water balanced on her fragile head. Her voice was weak, but her plea was strong. "Please, my children, help me," she whispered. Jasper didn't break his stride. "Let's go. We're late," he hissed. "We don't have time for this." But Mara stopped. Something inside her refused to walk past. Maybe it was her mother's voice from childhood, telling her to always help the helpless. Maybe it was her own pain that made her recognize the pain in others. Either way, she couldn't ignore the sight of the old woman's trembling arms. While Jasper argued, arms folded and jaw tight, Mara stepped forward, smiled gently, and reached for the bucket. What she didn't know, what none of us ever really know in the moment, is that small choices ripple like water. One act of kindness, done with no expectation of return, can set a quiet miracle in motion. Mara didn't do it for reward. She did it because it was right. Because sometimes, being late for a job is less important than being on time for a test of character. As she walked alongside the old woman, balancing the heavy load with care, the sun that had been blistering a moment ago slipped behind the clouds. The air softened. Something shifted. Jasper, still fuming behind her, didn't see it. But Mara felt it. It was the beginning of something greater than either of them could imagine. That single choice, helping when it wasn't convenient, listening to her heart instead of her fear, was about to change her entire life. What seemed like a delay in her job hunt was actually a shortcut to a deeper reward. Because sometimes, the universe hides its gifts in unexpected places, and those who pause to help are the ones who find them. What if the reward for your kindness came wrapped in mystery and shimmered like gold? Stay with this moment, because what happens next could change everything you believe about fate and generosity. Mara didn't expect anything. She didn't help the old woman for recognition, for praise, or for payment. Her hands had gone numb from the weight of the bucket, and sweat soaked her back. But as they approached a humble house at the end of a quiet path, walls cracked with age, yet surrounded by fresh flowers, Mara felt a deep sense of peace. She placed the bucket carefully beside a tree and turned to leave. "I'll be going now, Mama," she said, voice soft, tired, but kind. But the old woman's voice stopped her. "Wait, my daughter," she said gently. Mara turned, surprised. The woman walked closer and placed a wrinkled hand into hers. "Please," she continued, "go to that corner over there. Bring me the small native pot." Mara obeyed without hesitation. her fingers trembling slightly as she picked up the pot, covered in a faded red cloth. She handed it to the woman, who untied the cloth slowly, almost ceremonially. What happened next made Mara forget the heat, the job interview, and everything else. Inside the pot was a glowing bar of gold. Mara gasped. She had never seen gold in real life, only on TV, in stories, in dreams too far from her reach. "You are kind," the old woman said, eyes soft but strong. "People like you are rare. Take this. Keep it for 7 days. Do not sell it yet. Only after 7 days will its true value come to light." Mara stared, frozen. The weight of the gold in her hand felt surreal. She had given help with empty pockets, and now she held a treasure. She fell to her knees. "Thank you, Mama," she said, her voice shaking. "God bless you. I didn't expect anything. I only did what was right." The old woman nodded, placing her palm on Mara's head with care. "Go," she said. "Your kindness will open more doors than this gold ever will." And so Mara walked away, her heart pounding, the gold hidden in her handbag like a secret too bright to speak aloud. She couldn't stop smiling. She wanted to scream with joy, but something in her respected the moment's quiet magic. People watched her as she passed, her smile beaming in contrast to her worn clothes. But she wasn't thinking about them. She was thinking about Jasper. He needed to know. She wanted to tell him everything. What Mara didn't realize was that gold changes more than just circumstances. It reveals character. And while her reward was rooted in purity, someone else's reaction would soon be driven by something far darker. What happens when someone you trust smiles at your fortune, but secretly wants it for themselves? Jealousy doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes it creeps in with a quiet smile and a silent plan. Jasper didn't say much when Mara showed him the gold. In fact, he barely blinked. But his eyes, those were the giveaway. They stayed locked on the shimmering bar in her hand longer than they should have. He tried to cover it up with questions. "Where did you get this? Did you steal it? Are you sure she wasn't playing tricks on you?" But beneath the surface, something darker was brewing. Envy had entered his heart, quiet but hungry. And it wasn't going to leave easily. Mara tried to explain everything: the old woman, the cracked house, the pot in the corner, the message to wait 7 days. But Jasper wasn't listening to the words. He was listening to the gold. In his mind, it wasn't Mara's kindness that brought the reward. It was a random stroke of luck. And if luck could strike once, maybe it could strike again. For him. That night, Jasper didn't sleep. He sat outside his small house, the same spot where Mara had found him earlier that day. His eyes weren't fixed on the stars. They were fixed on memory. The dusty road, the old woman's voice, the pot under the tree. He replayed the details again and again. If she gave Mara 1 bar of gold, could there be more? What if that pot wasn't empty after all? And just like that, a plan formed. The next morning, Jasper woke up earlier than the birds. He didn't tell anyone where he was going. He returned to the same street where they had first met the old woman. And he waited. The sun rose high, sweat soaked his shirt. People passed, but none of them was her. Still, he didn't leave. He waited the next day, and the next, until finally she appeared, walking slowly, again with water on her head. This time Jasper ran to her. "Mama," he said softly, "let me help you." His voice carried a touch of sorrow. "I'm sorry for the way I spoke last time. My father is sick. We don't have money. I didn't know who else to turn to." It was all a lie, of course, a well-practiced one. The kind of story that sounds true because it comes from a place of real desperation, but not honesty. The old woman didn't answer at first. She just stared into his eyes, her gaze long and deep, as if trying to see the truth beneath his words. Then, silently, she handed him the bucket. To the world, It looked like an act of forgiveness. But in that silent exchange, something else passed between them, something Jasper couldn't read. He thought he was playing a clever game. But the truth was, he had just stepped into a test. And this time, there would be consequences far beyond gold. If temptation whispered in your ear and no one was watching, would you take more than you were given? Some mistakes glitter like gold, right before they burn everything you touch. The old woman pointed toward the back of the house. "Under the tree," she said calmly. "There's a pot. Bring it to me." Her voice was quiet, almost too gentle, but Jasper's heart thudded like a war drum. He had been waiting for this moment. He nodded eagerly and followed the narrow path, his shoes crunching softly over dry leaves. When he reached the old mango tree, there it was, a dark pot, round and covered with an aged piece of cloth. His hands shook as he lifted it. He glanced around. No one. Jasper's breath caught as he lifted the cloth. Inside were not one, not two, but many bars of gold, shimmering, stacked like sleeping treasure. His eyes widened, and for a moment all reason faded. The world went quiet except for one sound, greed whispering in his ear. He was meant to take just one. But what if he took more? What if he never had to worry about money again? He touched one of the bars, then another. The metal felt cold, powerful, and dangerously real. His chest tightened. "She won't know," he told himself. "She's old. She's just a village woman. She didn't even count them." He looked up at the sky, as if waiting for some kind of cosmic permission. There was only silence, and that was enough. With trembling hands, he slid 3 extra bars into his shirt, pressing them against his skin. Then, carefully, he placed the rest of the gold back inside the pot and covered it again with the cloth. He walked back to the front of the house with a controlled smile, heart pounding like a thief in the night. The old woman sat quietly on a wooden bench. She didn't move. "I brought it," he said. She nodded slowly and looked at the pot. Then her eyes moved up to his face. "You didn't touch anything in the pot, right?" Her voice was still gentle, but her gaze was sharp. Jasper laughed nervously and scratched the back of his head. "No, Mama. I just brought it like you said." She looked at him for a long moment. That silence felt heavier than words. Then she nodded once more. "Okay, you can go." Jasper turned quickly, eager to leave. But even as he stepped away, his back felt exposed, like her eyes were still on him, like something unseen had noticed the theft. Yet, he pushed the fear aside. He walked faster, clutching the gold under his shirt. "This is my moment," he thought. "My turn. My breakthrough." What Jasper didn't realize was that the pot he stole from was not just a container of gold. It was a test, a spiritual scale, weighted not in coins but in conscience. And what he carried away wasn't just stolen treasure. It was a curse wearing a golden face. What if the gold you stole started whispering to you, louder each day until your mind broke? Not all treasures are blessings. Some come with a cost your soul can't afford. At first, Jasper thought he had gotten away with it. No alarms rang, no lightning struck, no one came knocking at his door. He hid the gold bars beneath a loose floorboard and walked around like a man who had just glimpsed his future. But as night fell and silence crept in, something shifted. The room felt colder. The shadows felt longer, and when he closed his eyes, he could hear whispers, faint, echoing, unintelligible murmurs that seemed to rise from beneath the floor. He jolted awake, drenched in sweat. "It's just nerves," he muttered. "It's just the excitement." But the next day, it got worse. He couldn't sit still. His hands trembled. People noticed his distant stares and his forced smiles. When Mara came by to ask how he was doing, Jasper barely met her gaze. He nodded quickly, avoided her questions, and clutched his shirt like it was hiding more than gold. It was hiding guilt. And then the old woman showed up at Mara's doorstep. Her eyes weren't angry. They were calm, sad, and sharp. She looked Mara in the eye and asked one question: "Did you take my gold?" Mara's heart dropped. Confused, she shook her head. "No, Mama, I would never." But the weight of that question lingered long after the old woman left. Mara sat alone in her room, her mind racing. Why had the woman asked her that? She hadn't even seen her since the day she carried the water. Then a memory hit her. Jasper. The way he had looked at the gold. The way his eyes had narrowed, his smile faded, and his questions turned sharp. And most of all, how he never called her again. A chill ran down Mara's spine. No, he wouldn't. Would he? The next morning, she marched to Jasper's house. When he opened the door, she barely recognized him. His shirt was inside out, his hair messy, his eyes hollow and wild. "Jasper," she said, grabbing his arm. "Did you take the gold?" His response was a storm: denial, anger, accusation. "Why would I steal? Are you mad? She's lying. I don't even know her house." But the tremble in his voice betrayed him. He slammed the door. That evening, everything unraveled. People saw him in the streets, barefoot, shirt torn, shouting at invisible things. "The gold is mine!" he screamed, hurling sand into the air. "The pot is laughing! The frogs won't stop singing!" Children ran. Vendors closed their shops. And Mara, holding her small shopping bag, froze when she recognized him. "Jasper," she whispered. He turned slowly, eyes red and wild. Then he began laughing. Not the laugh of joy, but of a man no longer tethered to reality. It was no longer a question. He had taken the gold. And now, the gold was taking him. Would you beg for mercy on behalf of someone who betrayed you? Sometimes, real strength isn't in walking away. It's in pleading for the redemption of someone who doesn't deserve it. Mara stood frozen in the street, her heart breaking with every step Jasper took away from sanity. His words didn't make sense, raving about frogs, gold that spoke, and a sky that was falling. His clothes were torn, his feet bare, his mind unraveling in plain sight. Crowds gathered. Whispers spread like wildfire. But Mara didn't care about them. She saw the boy she once trusted, the friend who used to dream of a better life, now reduced to a broken shell of madness. And so, she did the unthinkable. She chased after him, grabbed his filthy shirt, and held on as he tried to squirm away, muttering nonsense. "You're not going anywhere," she said, voice trembling. "I'm taking you to her. You're going to see the old woman. She's the only one who can help you now." Jasper screamed and kicked, wild and unpredictable. But Mara didn't let go. People backed away as she dragged him through the street, sweat pouring down her back, heart pounding not from fear, but from hope. Somehow, somewhere inside her, she still believed he could be saved. When they reached the old woman's house, the compound was quiet. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dusty ground. The old woman was sitting alone on a wooden bench, her walking stick beside her, eyes lowered in silent thought. "Mama!" Mara called out, almost breathless. "Please, help! It's Jasper. He's not well." The old woman looked up slowly. Her gaze was calm, but it held a weight that silenced the world around her. She didn't ask what happened, because she already knew. She stood and looked at Jasper, who was now drawing circles in the dirt with his fingers, muttering about gold and whispering pots. "I asked him before," she said softly. "I gave him a chance to tell the truth, but he lied. He took what was not his. This madness, it came from above. It is not mine to cure." Mara's knees buckled. She collapsed in front of the old woman, grabbing the hem of her wrapper with both hands. "Please, Mama, don't do it for him. Do it for me. I know he did wrong. I know he stole. But he's suffering. Please, I'm begging you, forgive him, for my sake." There was silence. Even Jasper, still rambling, grew quiet, like the power of Mara's voice had cut through the noise in his mind. The old woman stared down at her, seeing the tears, the desperation, the fierce compassion in her eyes. After what felt like an eternity, the old woman nodded. "If not for your heart, child," she said quietly, "I would have walked away. But your soul is clean. For your sake, I will try." She stepped forward, placed her palm gently on Jasper's chest, and with one sudden strike, everything stopped. What if the gold you thought was yours was never meant for human hands at all? When blessings don't belong to you, even touching them can awaken powers you never meant to challenge. That the air stood still as Jasper collapsed to the ground. One moment he was spinning in circles, ranting about sky gold and talking frogs, and the next, he was silent, unconscious, breath shallow. Mara screamed and dropped to his side, shaking his shoulder. "Jasper, wake up!" she cried, her voice cracking with panic. The old woman didn't flinch. She simply raised one hand and said, "Now we wait." A minute passed, then another, and then Jasper stirred. His eyelids fluttered open slowly, and for the first time in days, his gaze held a flicker of clarity. "Where am I?" he whispered. His voice sounded small, like a child waking from a nightmare. Mara clutched his arm, eyes wide with relief. "You're back," she said. "Thank God." He looked around and spotted the old woman standing above him. Recognition hit him like lightning. "You helped me?" he asked, voice trembling. He dropped to his knees, hands clasped. "Mama, I didn't know. I thought it was just gold. I didn't know what I was doing. I was wrong." The old woman studied him for a moment before turning her gaze to Mara. "Tomorrow will be the 7th day, yes?" she asked. Mara nodded. "Yes, Mama. Tomorrow." The woman sighed and slowly sat down on her wooden bench. She reached into the folds of her wrapper and pulled out a small black cloth bag. "This," she said quietly, "is the gold." Mara's breath caught in her throat. "But I thought Jasper took it," she said, confused. "I thought it was gone." The woman nodded. "He did, but it came back." Mara blinked. "What do you mean?" The old woman's voice lowered. "The gold was never mine. It never truly belonged to any of us. It was given to me to guard, for a spirit, a being not of this world. I was only its keeper." She opened the cloth slowly, revealing the gold bar inside, untouched, gleaming as if it had never left. When Jasper stole it, the spirit came to collect. That's why his mind broke. It was a warning, a reminder. Not everything that shines is yours to take. Jasper's head hung low. His hands trembled. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know." The old woman looked at him, her voice soft, but firm. "Greed is not just a flaw. It's a door. A door that, once opened, can invite darkness. You were given one bar, and that was all. You crossed a line you didn't understand." Jasper nodded, still on his knees, overcome with shame. "Please forgive me." She turned back to Mara. "But your gift still stands. Tomorrow exchange it. Use it wisely. That gold found you because of your heart, not because you asked, but because you gave." The weight of her words hung in the air like incense. Mystical, heavy, unforgettable. Gold can change your life, but it can also expose your soul. In the end, the weight of your heart matters more than the weight of your wallet. As Mara and Jasper stepped out of the old woman's compound, the sky above them began to darken, not with rain, but with the quiet solemnity that comes after a storm has passed. Neither of them spoke. The air was heavy, not with guilt anymore, but with understanding, deep, silent, painful understanding. Jasper walked slowly, still shaken, still pale, as though his body had returned from a place his spirit hadn't fully left. And Mara, Her heart was full, not with pride or triumph, but with quiet gratitude. The gold still lay in her bag, untouched. Tomorrow, the 7th day, she would exchange it as instructed. But she already knew its value wasn't in the market price or what it could buy. It was in the lesson it carried. Not all riches glitter, and not all curses come with fangs or fire. Sometimes a curse is simply taking what was never meant for you and pretending it was a blessing. Back in the village, people whispered about Jasper's breakdown. Some said he'd been cursed, others said it was madness, but only a few knew the truth, that he had looked at a gift meant for another heart and tried to force it into his own hands. And it almost cost him his sanity. But more than that, it cost him trust. Mara had forgiven him, yes. She had begged for his healing, but things between them would never be the same. Because when someone chooses greed over loyalty, even if they survive it, something breaks that never quite returns to its original shape. That night, Mara stood by her window, staring at the moonlight washing across her floor. In her hands was the small cloth bag. She didn't open it. She didn't need to. The gold was no longer just metal. It was memory. It was mystery. It was a symbol of the truth. That kindness unlocks doors no key can open, while greed often leads to doors that shut behind you and vanish. The next morning, she walked to town and exchanged the gold as instructed. The money she received was enough to start a new life, enough to eat, to work, to build. But more than that, it gave her the freedom to never have to compromise her heart again. And she kept her promise to herself. She helped others with what she had, quietly, without fanfare. Jasper too changed, humbled, broken, and slowly healing. He stayed away from temptations. He found work, not wealth. And for the rest of his life, he never touched gold again. Because some things, once learned the hard way, never leave you. The moral is clear. Kindness leaves ripples, greed leaves cracks, and what you do when no one is watching is the truest measure of who you are. In the end, it wasn't about the gold. It was about who they became because of it. Sometimes life gives you a gift not to change your future, but to reveal your heart. Long after the dust had settled and the whispers faded from the streets, the memory of what happened to Mara and Jasper lived on. Not as a tale about gold, but as a mirror held up to human nature. People in the village still talked about the young man who danced barefoot in the street, shouting to the skies. They remembered the girl who carried a stranger's burden and walked away with something more valuable than money: dignity, gratitude, and peace. Mara, now with the means to live a stable life, never became boastful. She didn't flaunt her fortune. She didn't chase luxury. She remembered the weight of the bucket, the trembling hands of the old woman, and the quiet way the world had changed in a single act of kindness. The gold may have paid her rent and bought her food, but it was the lesson that shaped her soul. Jasper, too, became a story. Not a villain, not a hero, just a man who learned the hard way that taking what isn't yours can cost more than it gives. After his recovery, he became quieter, humbler. He found a simple job helping elderly people in the neighborhood. He never touched gold again. Sometimes Mara would see him offering to carry someone's groceries or walking slowly beside an old man with a cane. The glint in his eye was no longer ambition. It was understanding. And the old woman? She was never seen again. Some said she moved away. Others whispered she was never truly human, that she had come as a spirit in disguise, sent to test hearts and leave behind a story no one would forget. Whether she was mortal or mystical didn't matter anymore. What mattered was what she taught without preaching, what she gave without expecting anything in return, and what she took away from those who chose deception. In the final moments of this story, we're left not with treasure maps or happy endings wrapped in gold, but with something far rarer: a truth that hums quietly through every generation. You can't cheat your way into a blessing. You can't steal a miracle and expect it to bloom. But you can open doors with compassion. You can walk into purpose when you walk with integrity. And you will find that the universe sees everything, even the choices made when no one else is watching. So remember, kindness is never wasted. Greed always leaves a scar. And the richest people in the world are often the ones with empty hands, but full hearts. In life, it's not the weight of gold we carry that defines us. It's the weight of our choices. This story reminds us that kindness, even when inconvenient or unseen, plants seeds that bloom in ways we may never expect. Mara helped with no intention of gain, and her reward came not just in gold, but in dignity and peace of mind. Jasper, driven by greed, learned that taking what doesn't belong to you might offer a moment of pleasure, but leads to a lifetime of regret. For older generations who have seen the world change, this story speaks to timeless truths. That character is more lasting than wealth, that humility protects the heart, and that sometimes the greatest wisdom is found in doing the right thing when no one is looking. As we age, we realize the most valuable things in life, trust, kindness, integrity, cannot be bought, only earned. Let us carry these values forward and teach them to the young, not with harsh words, but with gentle stories like this one, where actions speak louder than sermons, and a good heart opens doors no amount of gold ever could.